You see, life is full of watchers. Some watch to learn from you, others watch to judge you. Some are silently praying for your success, and others are silently waiting for your downfall. But what you say, how you react, how you carry yourself when people provoke you, that's what defines your real character. Silence, my friends, is not emptiness. It's full of self-control, it's full of dignity, it's full of power. So today, let's understand why keeping quiet isn't a sign of fear, but a sign of strength, awareness, and grace. Silence protects your energy. When someone says something harsh, unfair, or simply unnecessary, your first instinct might be to reply, to defend, to explain, to prove them wrong. But what if, instead of reacting, you simply smiled, stayed still, and let your silence speak? You see, every time you react out of anger or ego, you lose a little piece of your peace. The more you argue, the more you exhaust your emotional energy that could have been spent on growth, creativity, and happiness. The truth is, not every opinion deserves a response. Not every comment requires a counter-comment. When you respond to negativity, you give it life. When you stay silent, you take away its oxygen. Think about it. When someone throws fire at you, if you throw fire back, what happens? You both burn. But if you walk away, the fire dies on its own. Silence works like water. It cools, it heals, it calms. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you value your peace more than someone's attention. Have you ever noticed how peaceful people feel powerful without even speaking much? It's because they've mastered their inner energy. They don't let random words disturb their inner balance. They understand that peace is not found by controlling the world. It's found by controlling their response to it. Sometimes, the greatest protection of your mental and spiritual energy comes from knowing when to say nothing. When you keep quiet, you allow the noise around you to settle. You start hearing your own inner voice again. You begin to see clearly who deserves your words and who only deserves your silence. Because silence isn't the absence of communication. It's the highest form of communication. It says, I'm not going to waste my energy explaining what time will eventually reveal. So protect your energy. Not everyone deserves access to your emotions, your thoughts, or your reactions. Preserve them. Because once you learn to be silent in chaos, no one can ever take your peace away. People observe more than they listen. Most of the time, they're not hearing your words. They're watching your behavior. They're watching how you react when things go wrong. They're watching how you treat people who can do nothing for you. They're watching how consistent you are between what you say and what you do. We live in a world full of noise. Everyone's talking, everyone's sharing, everyone's posting, but very few are actually living what they speak. And that's why your actions will always have more weight than your words. You can say 1,000 good things, but if your behavior doesn't match them, people remember the difference. Words may impress people for a moment, but your conduct inspires them for a lifetime. Think about the people you respect deeply, not because they spoke beautifully, but because they lived beautifully. Their character was louder than their voice. Their humility spoke without a single sentence. Their consistency became their credibility. The same applies to you. Every gesture, every expression, every silence, it's all being noticed. You may not realize it, but someone somewhere is learning from you. Maybe a friend who admires your calmness, a child who's watching how you deal with stress, or a co-worker who's inspired by your integrity. You don't need to announce your goodness. You just need to be good. The right people will feel it without you ever having to prove it. When you choose kindness over reaction, people see it. When you choose patience instead of anger, people notice. When you forgive and move forward instead of seeking revenge, people remember. Your behavior plants seeds in the minds of others. Some seeds take time to grow, but when they do, they become legacies. It's said, your example isn't the main thing in influencing others. It's the only thing. You might never know how many lives your silent goodness has touched. But rest assured, your presence, your actions, and your responses are constantly teaching others something. About peace, about dignity, about restraint. So before you speak, ask yourself, what message am I sending with my behavior? Because even when you say nothing, the way you walk, the way you listen, the way you treat others, that's your loudest voice. Be someone whose actions whisper truth, kindness, and integrity, because people might forget what you said, but they'll never forget how your presence made them feel. Not every reaction deserves your response. In life, there will always be people who test your patience, challenge your peace, and try to pull you into unnecessary conflict. Some do it consciously, to see if they can make you lose control. Others do it unconsciously, because that's all they know. But no matter where it comes from, you must understand this truth. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. When you react to everything, you lose power. You give strangers the remote control to your emotions. Imagine this: someone throws an insult, and instantly your peace disappears. You start explaining, defending, and overthinking. And by the time it's over, they've forgotten what they said, but you're still carrying it in your heart. That's the cost of unnecessary reaction. It drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and keeps you stuck in battles that don't even matter. Your silence, on the other hand, has a special kind of strength. It says, I refuse to be reduced by this situation. It's not about pretending nothing happened. It's about choosing what's worth your energy. When you stay silent in the face of provocation, you're not surrendering. You're simply refusing to waste your peace on things that will not matter in a day, a week, or a year. Think about how often we react to small things: a rude comment on social media, a sarcastic tone, a misunderstanding, or someone's opinion about us. Every time we let those things bother us, we're giving them a part of our mind. But peace begins the moment you stop needing to respond to everything. When you master that, you realize how powerful you truly are. It takes strength to walk away when your ego wants to stay and fight. It takes maturity to keep quiet when you have every reason to argue. And it takes wisdom to realize that silence doesn't mean you lost. It means you chose yourself over the chaos. Sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is to say nothing. Not because you don't have a point, but because you understand that not every battle is yours to fight. The world expects a reaction, but when you respond with calmness, you confuse negativity. You take away its fuel. You starve it of attention. People may call you cold. They may say you don't care. But silence doesn't mean indifference. It means discernment. You've simply learned the difference between what deserves your voice and what deserves your peace. So next time someone tries to provoke you, pause, take a breath. Ask yourself, if I react now, will it bring me peace or just more noise? Most of the time, silence will be your best answer. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of understanding, control, and quiet strength. And when you master that art, no one, no situation, and no word can take your peace away. Silence builds inner strength. It's one of those things that doesn't make sense at first. How can staying quiet make you stronger? We live in a world that tells us to speak up, to respond fast, to have an opinion about everything. But the truth is, silence is where your real power grows. It's in those moments when you stop talking and start listening, not to others, but to yourself, that you discover how strong you truly are. When you're silent, you begin to notice the noise inside your own mind. You hear the doubts, the fears, the endless chatter that usually goes unnoticed in the rush of daily life. And slowly, as you sit with that noise, it starts to calm down. Silence teaches you patience. It teaches you to wait instead of react, to think instead of speak, and to feel instead of escape. That's how inner strength is built, not by fighting every battle, but by mastering the one within yourself. When you hold your silence in the face of misunderstanding or insult, you train your emotions. You show your ego that it doesn't always need to win. You teach your heart to stay steady even when the world is shaking around you. That's real strength, not in shouting louder, but in standing calmer. Think about a mountain. It doesn't need to prove its height. It doesn't need to argue with the wind. It just stands still, silent, grounded, unshaken. That's what silence does to your soul. It grounds you. It gives you roots so deep that no storm can uproot you easily. There's a moment that comes in silence. A moment when you stop reacting to the world and start responding from within. You realize that peace isn't found in changing what's outside, but in mastering what's inside. You begin to notice how powerful your restraint is, how freeing it feels not to be controlled by anger, and how light your heart becomes when you let go of the need to explain yourself all the time. People who understand silence carry a different kind of aura. They walk with calmness, speak with depth, and radiate confidence that doesn't need to be loud. Their strength isn't in their words, it's in their presence. When they walk into a room, you feel their peace. That's the kind of power silence builds, quiet but undeniable. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you add a layer to your inner foundation. Every time you breathe instead of explode, you gain more control over yourself. And every time you remain still, when chaos surrounds you, you rise above it. You see, anyone can shout, anyone can argue, but very few can stay silent and smile. It takes wisdom to hold back your words, and it takes courage to let silence speak for you. Because silence is not empty, it's full of lessons. It tells you where your peace is fragile and where your patience is strong. And as you practice it, you'll notice something beautiful. Silence no longer feels like holding back, it feels like holding power. It feels like strength. It feels like freedom. Because when you can stay calm in chaos, when you can be silent in misunderstanding, when you can keep peace in provocation, that's when you've truly mastered yourself. Silence creates respect. In a world that constantly rewards noise, opinion, and attention, silence has become a forgotten language. Yet, it's one of the most powerful ways to earn genuine respect, not by force, not by dominance, but by dignity. When you choose silence in moments of anger or conflict, people notice something rare in you: control. They may not understand it at first, but deep down they feel it. A quiet power that speaks louder than words ever could. When you hold your peace instead of reacting, you send a message. I am not controlled by your behavior. I am led by my values. And that, my friends, is what earns respect. Anyone can raise their voice. It takes real strength to raise your standard. People might forget what you said in an argument, but they will always remember how you carried yourself through it. Think about the people you admire the most, spiritual leaders, wise mentors, or elders in your family. They don't speak all the time, do they? When they talk, everyone listens. Why? Because their silence gives their words weight. They don't waste words to prove a point, they wait until their words are the point. The more you learn to remain silent in unnecessary battles, the more people start to value your presence, your opinions, and your boundaries. Silence also creates mystery, a gentle kind of mystery that makes people think before they speak to you. It makes them reflect on their own words and actions because your calmness mirrors their noise. Your silence becomes a mirror and people suddenly begin to see themselves in it. Some will feel humbled, others might feel uncomfortable, but all will respect it because silence reveals character, not just yours, but theirs too. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you reclaim your power. When you stop reacting to gossip, criticism, or misunderstanding, you show the world that you're not desperate for validation. Respect flows naturally toward those who no longer chase it. Silence teaches people how to treat you, not by your demands, but by your discipline. Even in relationships, silence can build stronger connections than constant talking. Sometimes, the best way to show understanding is not through words, but through presence. Just being there, listening, observing, allowing space, can earn more love and admiration than 1,000 speeches. People remember how safe they felt in your calmness, how peaceful your energy was when everything else felt heavy. And when you do speak after silence, your words land differently. They carry authority because they come from a place of reflection, not reaction. You're no longer speaking to be heard. You're speaking to add value. That's the kind of speech people respect. So remember, silence doesn't make you invisible. It makes you impactful. It makes others pause before they judge, think before they argue, and listen when you finally decide to speak. True respect isn't built through fear or loudness. It's built through quiet strength. The world may not always understand your silence, but it will never forget it. Because silence, when rooted in wisdom, becomes your reputation. It says without saying, I have nothing to prove and everything to protect. And when you live that way, respect doesn't need to be demanded. It's naturally given. Calm minds make clear decisions. When your mind is calm, your world begins to make sense. But when your thoughts are restless, even small choices start to feel heavy. Most people make decisions from a place of chaos. When they're angry, afraid, hurt, or desperate, and in that state, no decision can ever truly be right. Calmness is not just peace, it's power. It's the space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. It's that quiet gap where clarity lives. When the mind is turbulent, it's like muddy water. The more you stir it, the less you can see. But when you let it settle, the dirt slowly sinks and the water becomes clear. The same thing happens with your thoughts. When you pause, breathe, and allow silence to wash over your emotions, the truth rises naturally to the surface. You begin to see what's real, what's noise, and what truly matters. Many people think decisions are made with logic, but they are actually made with emotion first, and then justified by logic. That's why calmness is so important. When you're calm, your emotions don't control you, you control them. You don't rush to react, you choose to reflect. And from that reflection, wisdom is born. A calm mind doesn't mean you don't feel pain or pressure. It means you don't let those feelings dictate your direction. It's the ability to stand in the middle of a storm and still know which way is north. It's looking at life's noise and saying, I won't make a move until my heart feels still. That kind of discipline leads to decisions that are not only smarter, but also kinder, deeper, and long lasting. When you make choices from panic, you often end up regretting them. But when you wait for calmness, you gain perspective. You realize that sometimes not reacting is the best reaction. Sometimes silence gives you answers that words cannot. Sometimes waiting gives you results that rushing never could. The mind, when calm, becomes your best advisor. It whispers instead of shouts. It reminds you of your purpose instead of your pain. It guides you gently toward what aligns with your values. But to hear that whisper, you have to silence the noise of comparison, fear, and ego. Calmness also improves how you see people. When you're agitated, everyone looks like a problem. When you're calm, you start to see people for who they are, not for how they act in their own moments of chaos. You understand that their anger comes from their pain, their harshness from their fear. This understanding brings compassion, and compassion brings wisdom. Great leaders, wise teachers, and peaceful souls all share one quality. They don't rush. They pause before they speak. They listen before they judge. And they reflect before they decide. Their calmness is not accidental. It's practiced. It's built through silence, through patience, through a deep connection with themselves. You too can cultivate that power. When something troubles you, instead of reacting instantly, take a breath, step back, let your emotions settle, then ask yourself, what would I decide if I wasn't afraid? What would I choose if I wasn't angry? That's how calmness brings clarity. So remember this, storms are temporary, but bad decisions can last forever. Never let your emotions make choices that your calm mind will later regret. Because once your mind is calm, everything else starts falling into place. Your thoughts clear up, your relationships soften, and your life begins to flow. Calmness doesn't mean inaction, it means inner alignment. It means moving but not rushing, speaking but not shouting, deciding but not forcing. When your mind is calm, your decisions are not reactions to the world, they are reflections of your soul. And that, my friends, is when you start living with true clarity. Your silence can disarm negativity. There is something deeply powerful about remaining calm and quiet in the face of hostility, anger, or criticism. When someone attacks you with their words, their goal, consciously or not, is often to provoke you. They want your reaction, your energy, your peace. They want you to step down to their level so they can feel in control. But silence breaks that entire pattern. It removes their power. It creates discomfort in the one who expected drama and got peace instead. Negativity thrives on response. It feeds on reaction. Every time you respond to gossip, insult, or manipulation, you give that negativity a stage. But when you stay silent, when you choose to walk away instead of argue, you deny it oxygen. You let it die on its own. Silence doesn't mean you agree with what's wrong. It means you're wise enough to know that not every battle deserves your energy. Think about it. When someone shouts and you shout back, it becomes noise. No one learns, no one wins. But if one person stays calm, the other begins to look foolish. That's the magic of silence. It exposes the true nature of things without you having to say a single word. It shows who's controlled by anger and who's led by peace. Have you ever noticed that people who stay composed, even when criticized or provoked, often carry an unshakable aura? They don't respond to negativity because they've learned that silence is not weakness. It's mastery. It takes great strength to be still when every part of you wants to react. It takes maturity to realize that some people are not looking for truth, they're looking for chaos. And the best way to win against chaos is not to join it. Silence is like a shield. When someone tries to pull you into a fight, your calmness becomes a mirror that reflects their own frustration back at them. The more peaceful you remain, the more they lose control. Negativity cannot survive where peace lives. It's like darkness. It disappears when light enters. And silence, my friends, is that light. Even in relationships, when arguments arise, silence can heal more than shouting ever will. Because silence gives space for emotions to settle, for thoughts to mature, and for love to breathe again. Sometimes you don't need to prove who's right or wrong. Sometimes you just need to be still and let time show the truth. The one who is silent often ends up being understood, while the one who shouts only ends up feeling empty. But silence doesn't mean suppression. It's not about holding your pain inside. It's about choosing when and how to express it. It's about understanding that peace is a choice, not a reaction. You can express truth calmly. You can set boundaries quietly. You can correct someone with kindness instead of confrontation. That is the true art of emotional strength. In the end, negativity loses when it has no one to fight with. Your silence disarms it. It confuses it. It turns the energy back toward itself. And that's how peace wins, not by overpowering the darkness, but by refusing to become it. So, the next time someone throws negativity at you, don't absorb it, don't argue, don't explain. Just breathe, stand still, smile, maybe. Your silence will speak volumes. It will say, I'm not here to compete with your chaos. I'm here to protect my peace. And you'll notice something beautiful. Over time, people will stop testing your peace because they'll realize your silence isn't emptiness. It's strength, it's awareness, it's a boundary, and it's the most graceful way to disarm negativity without ever losing yourself in the process. Silence is a spiritual practice. It's not just the absence of sound, it's the presence of awareness. In silence, something sacred happens. The noise of the world fades, and the voice of your soul becomes louder. We spend so much of our lives talking, explaining, arguing, and proving that we forget the most profound connection doesn't happen through words. It happens in stillness. Silence is the bridge between you and something greater. Call it peace, truth, or the divine. When you sit in silence, you start to see things as they really are. You realize how restless the mind can be, how it jumps from one thought to another, never satisfied, never still. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even lonely. But as you breathe and allow that stillness to deepen, something changes. The noise begins to settle. You start to see the space between your thoughts. You begin to understand that you are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. And that simple realization opens the door to spiritual awakening. In that quiet space, ego loses its grip. The need to be right, to be heard, to be validated, it slowly melts away. You begin to see how much energy is wasted on proving things that don't matter. You stop seeking attention because silence teaches you that peace is found within, not in approval from outside. You start feeling whole, complete, and content with just a being. That's the beauty of silence. It doesn't give you more. It reminds you that you already have everything you need. Every spiritual teacher in history, from monks in the Himalayas to philosophers of the West, has understood the power of silence. Because in silence you meet yourself. You come face to face with your emotions, your wounds, your truths. It's not always comfortable, but it's always healing. Silence brings you closer to your essence, that pure part of you, untouched by the chaos of the world. Sometimes, when words fall short, silence becomes prayer. When you can't find answers, silence becomes wisdom. When you feel lost, silence becomes guidance. It's in those moments of stillness that intuition speaks, softly, clearly, and truthfully. But to hear it, you must quiet the constant chatter of the mind. Think of silence like the calm surface of a lake. When the water is disturbed, you can't see your reflection clearly. But when it's still, it mirrors the sky perfectly. Your mind is the same. Only in silence can it reflect the truth of who you are. Peaceful, powerful, and pure. When you practice silence, even for a few minutes a day, you begin to notice changes. You become more patient. You start reacting less and observing more. You begin to understand people's pain instead of judging their behavior. You stop rushing and start flowing. And the world, which once felt loud and overwhelming, begins to feel gentle and manageable. Silence connects you with compassion. It helps you see that everyone is fighting their own silent battles. It opens your heart, softens your judgments, and reminds you that behind every loud voice is someone longing for peace. The more silent you become, the more you hear not just sounds, but feelings, intentions, and truths that words can never express. This kind of silence isn't about isolation. It's about presence. It's about being fully aware of the moment, the sound of your breath, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the warmth of sunlight, the quiet hum of life around you. When you live in that awareness, you no longer feel separate from the world. You feel one with it. That's spirituality, unity, peace, and surrender. So, if life feels noisy, chaotic, or confusing, step into silence. Sit with yourself. Close your eyes. Let go of the urge to fill the space. Just be. You don't have to seek enlightenment. Silence will bring it to you naturally. Because in silence, the soul remembers what the mind has forgotten. That peace is not found in doing, but in being. And when you come out of that silence, you'll speak differently. Your words will carry calmness. Your presence will carry power. Your eyes will carry peace. That's the gift of silence. It doesn't just quiet your surroundings, it transforms your spirit. It's the most sacred form of prayer without words, and the most divine way of hearing what truly matters.